CBS 6 News starts now.
Violent start to the week in Albany, where police say a Rensselaer man was shot in the head.
Albany has a true issue.
A 32-year-old man is in stable condition tonight after being shot in the stomach while inside a local bar early Sunday morning.
Do you think Albany has a gang problem?
We've always had gangs.
It was just the first shooting today, the second happening in broad daylight and sending a young man to the hospital.
Every single time to answer this issue, they only call on punitive measures.
By the way, good luck finding something to do in Albany.
We have to get, we have to do better. We have to do better.
I don't believe individuals around here feel supported. They feel abandoned, actually.
Albany, New York, New York's capital city, crumbling, moribund, run down, if you ask the New York Times. It comes as Governor Hochul proposes a $400 million investment to boost Albany's downtown. At face value, the Times' take on a city in need just scratches the surface of an issue that CBS 6 has been asking about for years. Is Albany safe? Here's what one suburban state lawmaker told me. Does it concern you that that's the picture that Albany paints for the rest of the world? This rundown, crime-ridden area right outside the Capitol?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, I think, I'm a suburbanite. I've spent my whole life in the Capital District, but I've always been in the suburbs. And I think a fair number of people just will not come to the city of Albany anymore. And it seems to me, I've had staffers who have lived, right in Center Square, very close to the Capitol, and that was always considered to be very safe and secure neighborhoods. But even that's not the case anymore. It's it's not like I spend a lot of time when I'm not in this building in the city of Albany, but I've got eyes in the back of my head even walking out to my own car. And we had staffers that, and people that are worried that are parking in some of the local garages where there have been assaults. It seems to be getting a lot more bold and a lot more problematical.
You don't want to walk through parts of Albany yourself?
Oh, I won't. No, I love Cafe Capriccio. I love to go out to dinner there. I won't walk anywhere in Albany without somebody with me, somebody that's bigger that I know will have my back. Really, I just won't. I just think it's too dangerous, and that's too bad. It's really too bad for our capital, for our state capital, to be like that. Yeah.
So the question is, can a $400 million shot in the arm from the state of New York rescue the city of Albany?
I need mounted armor. When you see that the city gives a maybe you're going to consider taking your criminality elsewhere.
Blight, crime, homelessness, addiction. Residents and business owners tell our Brianna Sapardi they know these issues all too well.
I'm standing on the corner of North Pearl Street and Pine Street, where just within sight, I see several empty storefronts. They tell a story of struggle for business owners here in Albany, many of them saying that the city isn't making it easy for them to succeed.
A lot of our customers say they would never want to come back or do anything other than it being work down here.
Albany's business owners say the growing presence of aggressive panhandlers, substance abuse, and untreated mental illness on Albany streets is making people feel unsafe and driving customers away. Frank Scavio, who owns Paison's Pizza on Ontario Street, has captured a number of incidents on camera where the issues on the streets spill into his business.
The guy who beat up the handicapped guy was on some kind of drugs. They robbed his cell phone, they beat him up, and they just give him an appearance ticket. Within 2 hours, he's back on the corner, and he put another person in the hospital. And this is where we really need to look at, how do we help people with substance abuse, mental illness?
Business owners want the city to offer more mental health resources and outreach programs, along with more enforcement when things get out of hand.
I want to hear about where we're going to put these people so that the burden of caring for our members of the community that don't have a place to live isn't falling on me, the business owner.
For the owner of Cafe Hollywood, the city shutting him down a second time after a shooting inside back in November was the last straw. He chose to close his bar for good after more than 30 years in business.
Take the money and go to Rensselaer or Troy, because I don't feel like doing business here anymore.
And these concerns aren't new. In 2023, the owners of Pearl Street Diner organized a meeting with city leaders, hoping for solutions. They called for stronger police presence and action against street-level crime.
And we're hoping things will be better, but there has been no change.
As the state invests $400 million in Albany, including $150 million to renovate the New York State Museum, business owners worry the investments aren't tackling the real issues.
If you're not dealing with the fundamental problems in the city of Albany, no one is going to come down to enjoy this new $150 million renovation of the New York State Museum. Lark Street just underwent this massive redo, a redevelopment of the street. The idea was to make Lark Street more walkable and pedestrian friendly. But foot traffic has decreased. Foot traffic has decreased. People aren't walking on Lark Street because what they haven't done is dealt with the criminality that occurs there.
2025 is bringing a lot of change to the city of Albany, a new police chief and a new district attorney. We'll talk to that new chief, Brendan Cox, who's been the top cop in Albany since last December. But first, the DA's office. It has changed hands for the first time in 20 years. Lee Kinlan now at the helm, tasked with creating a culture of accountability inside and outside the office. Our Tom Eshin took a walk with Kinlan down South Pearl Street.
And this corner and this stretch of road on Madison was a flashpoint last year because some of the business owners said, look, we're trying to keep our businesses open. We're trying to build an economy, but public safety is a concern.
How do you, I guess, almost change a trend, change this system? You know, when it comes to accountability,
Sure.
so it's a mindset, right? I think that's probably what the DA's office helps provide is mentality at the end of the day, right?
Right, and so you can point to the statistics and say, hey, we're 5% safer than we were a year ago. And those are all encouraging numbers, and I give credit to the mayor, and I give credit to the police here in Albany. But I think the other part of this is the message, and that is, and it's the same thing I tell my boys when they're doing their homework at night. I say, look, sometimes you got to show the work. And so we're trying to be as open and as transparent as we can so that everybody sees how hard my office is working, how well we're working with the resources of the county and the cities to make sure that people know how much effort is being put into making these streets safer and making sure their tax dollars are being spent well.
And if you think about criminal justice reform and the reasons some of those statutes are put into place at the end of the day, you know, that's a more of a long term, right? And how do you continue, I guess, to help those individuals that maybe have had the short end of the stick, that grew up in this neighborhood?
Yeah, and I've represented them in court, and they don't have two nickels to rub together, and they say, all I want is a little bit of fairness. And so you got to make sure that, and we're dealing on a real granular level with a lot of these criminal cases now, is we make sure that they have access to services, access to resources, access to good lawyers, and access to discovery so they know, again, they see the work being put into their case. But one of the things I'm focused on right now is making sure we put the most dangerous people away and we open up more and more opportunities for restorative justice. Because I will say this, we've seen the crime statistics headed generally in the right direction over the past couple of decades. I think that has a lot to do with criminal justice reforms that started here in Albany. And yeah, there have been some stops and starts, and it hasn't been perfect. But I think the arc is always headed in the right direction.
Where do you want your arms to reach, if you want to say it like that, I guess, from terms of your office, in terms of supplying resources and help to people that were walking by here like today?
Well, I understand that you can't prosecute your way out of every problem. So I've got to make sure that my office stays true to the mission of what a district attorney's office can be. You know, we're a box of hammers, but not every problem is a nail.
I want you to find people in there who are positive, who are trying to change their lives for the better. No matter what you did to me, I wish you would.
A message of compassion in the face of a heartbreaking, life-changing act of violence. In 2023, John Romano, a reformed convicted school shooter, offering forgiveness to a man who brutally attacked him with a sword while Romano was volunteering at an Albany shelter. Romano's hands were severed, leaving him with limited use after they were reattached. Lara Bryn found it's that sort of compassion that could make a difference for a marginalized community.
I think the city is trying its best, but I think the city is struggling, especially with the police force, struggling with what you might call small addictions, but they're their life, life addictions in a sense.
Pastor Perry Jones would know. He runs the Capital City Rescue Mission, which is more than just a homeless shelter. It also operates a 9-month drug rehab program and transitional housing for rehab participants. One of its former graduates is now Jones's chief of staff, David Poach.
There is many resources in Albany, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to get into treatment and get that medical help and addiction help.
He came to the rescue mission years ago after falling victim to addiction and losing his career as a firefighter.
We can always offer all of these services, but the person has to be ready.
There are 2 things the mission says help incentivize these people to change their lives. One is showing empathy.
I think the most important thing is showing them that they're seen and they're valued. You'll be amazed how just going up to someone and shaking their hand, asking them their name, and asking them about themselves, something shifts.
Another incentive to get help, showing off the mission's apartments for those in the 9-month program and these studio apartments for transitional housing, which was added in recent years.
Back in 2009, had about a 17% success rate with no transitional living. It completely flipped on its head. So our success rate is over 75%.
We asked the mayor and police chief for their thoughts on solutions.
We're in the process of hiring these crisis workers. We do need to ultimately do some case management out on the street.
We worked with the county to create a pilot program and then to take that pilot program and turn it into a fully funded program.
The mission is also looking to build another building here to rehab and help even more people, and they've already raised $6 million to do it, but the city is hesitant.
So I think the issue is how people are kind of recruited or how they end up in our community. You know, a lot of this stuff is people that are coming from all over the United States. It's unfortunate because the times that we're living in, there's going to be homeless people and there's a need, and we just feel like it shouldn't be centrally located in one part of the city.
The focus of homeless people aren't always, the first people they want around, per se. Stigma is probably the biggest impediment.
Stay with us. We'll sit down with the mayor and the chief of police, and we'll turn back the clock to when the city of Albany got a mid-century makeover that overhauled and upended the downtown. I'm standing right now in the shadow of the Central Warehouse, what remains of a cold storage facility that's been part of the Albany skyline for the better part of the last century. As Albany County weighs plans to tear down the concrete monolith, Liz Bishop takes a look back at another project that drastically changed the Albany skyline, for better or worse.
Was it a hub for vibrant ethnic communities or endless blocks of fallen bricks and shattered windows? And when it was wiped away and replaced with this, did it lead to this? Albany's South End, 1962. An eyesore to some, a generational home to others, and a fixer-upper waiting to happen for a political leader with an itch to build and the resources to do it.
The people of Albany, the people of the state, the people of this country are going to be very, very proud of New York State's new capital.
Before the flush of embarrassment over Albany's blighted South End could fade from his face, New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller had seized 40 city blocks in the heart of the city to begin what was then the largest urban renewal project in the country.
It had to be here because Rockefeller wanted to go from the Capitol to the governor's mansion.
Thriving ethnic neighborhoods that had grown up over generations were scrubbed from the landscape, along with family restaurants, churches, small grocery stores, and public and private schools.
The cathedral, before the mall, had 3,000 families. After the mall, it had 300. You take any business, any social function, and you take away 90% of it, there's a cost.
3,300 houses, apartments, and rooms to let were snatched up through eminent domain, leaving 7,000 people with little advance warning and no place to go. The arrival of a gleaming steel and marble streetscape meant the departure of neighborhood pride and a sense of community. 60 years later, the community is trying to bring them back against a backdrop of recurrent violent crime. But Jack McEnany, who walked those neighborhoods with former Police Chief Hawkins, says
A lot of the crimes aren't even based on money and drugs. They're based on disrespect. That if somebody disrespects you, you've got to get even with. And the getting even has been just raising havoc.
more than a half-century since the completion of the Empire State Plaza, there's no definitive way to measure the impact of those lost neighborhoods and the gain of a state workforce in its place.
It would have progressed in many different ways, both good and bad, like all cities do.
Leaving McEnany, for one, feeling wistful.
You realize the flesh and blood, the neighborhoods that were in there. If you have no memory about it, that's great. And if you have a memory, you're always going to feel sad.
Effective change sometimes calls for a complete overhaul, and in some ways that's what we're seeing right now in the city of Albany. City government is changing hands. Here's Tom Eschen.
I'm Tom Eschen here at the Albany Police Headquarters on Henry Johnson Boulevard. We're going to go inside and sit down with Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan, the interim police chief Brendan Cox, about the city's challenges, the solutions, and the proposed state investments which could help. Let's go inside. We were down on South Pearl yesterday. You could feel down there that people are looking for an answer. I guess, what is the answer that you can provide them?
So for this past number of weeks, we have had an initiative in the downtown area to have an increased presence of police, but not just doing enforcement, of looking at what the quality of life issues, of working with our community partners on recognizing that if we have people that are unhoused, if we have people with unmet behavioral health issues, to get them connected to services, but to also have officers stopping into businesses and making sure they're connecting to those businesses, making sure the businesses see them.
What does $200 million applied look like in the city of Albany when it comes to the state funding, Mayor?
Well, I mean, that's something that we're going to be working with the development community to determine. There have been some ideas proposed. You've heard about the potential for a soccer stadium, but it really is meant to catalyze between $500 million and $1 billion in private investment. We need housing downtown.
You know, when you have a vacancy rate and people not coming to work, people working remotely, sometimes just that void sometimes makes people feel unsafe. So I think that this investment is a key for public safety because it also brings that vibrancy and activity to the downtown that we're also used to seeing in this great capital city.
Is there a technology aspect to that? I know some different municipalities have tried ShotSpotter or also enhanced cameras, you know, throughout their downtown. Is that an element of this that you would like to see enhanced at this point?
So we have we do have a lot of technology in the city. We do utilize a lot of cameras. We will continue to invest in that. I'm not a huge proponent of ShotSpotter. What I'm a proponent of is community policing, where our community, when they see something, they say something, they call us, they let us know. That's what I find works best.
What do you want to be able to accomplish in this next year? I guess, what do you want to be able to say you left the city with as we talk about all these different issues and to make sure it's a healthy transition to whatever the next administration would be?
Well, no city is ever static. When I became mayor, I never expected to be the mayor during a pandemic, a once-in-a-100-year pandemic. And throughout all of that, we have created a strong foundation for this city to build on. There is nothing this city can't achieve. There is nothing that we can't do because we did the hard work. We rolled up our sleeves. We balanced the budget. We built a rainy day fund. We invested in infrastructure. We invested in every neighborhood. And so there's nothing that the city isn't capable of doing. And, you know, over the next 5-10 years, I'm confident that we've created the foundation for this city to continue to grow.
The seat of state government is getting a financial boost from its biggest tenant. I got a chance to see how the state is looking at how to best deliver a $400 million investment. You've heard from the local stakeholders, but how about the state of New York? Governor Hochul is proposing $150 million to renovate this place, the State Museum, to make it a more attractive destination. There's another $250 million that would go towards some yet-to-be-determined projects. To get input on those projects, 2 top state commissioners just went on a downtown business tour. Decisions on what to do with the state influx of cash will be made after suggestions from stakeholders and economic experts. I spent some time talking with one of the governor's point people for the Albany project, the Office of General Services Commissioner, Jeanette Moy.
There's a real opportunity here to build on the investments that have been happening over the last 3 budget cycles to really move forward some of the challenges and address some of the long-standing challenges here in Albany.
So what challenges will be addressed? We know $150 million is going to the State Museum. Can you give us specifics on other projects right now?
So there are funds that have been set aside for the New York State Department of Transportation looking at 787. Certainly that analysis is going to take some time. I just spoke to Commissioner Dominguez about it. She's looking forward to looking at the broader impacts of making changes to 787 and how to unify as best we can the city of Albany so that you have access to the river. There's also funds that have been set aside, $200 million towards downtown. And so that's work that ESD will be leading. They have an RFP already that's out on the street to identify someone who can help to facilitate conversations with the local community, best understand what needs to be invested within 1 mile of the Empire State Plaza. There's also funds that are set aside for public safety, as well as some increase of funding for the city of Albany.
That's the $1 million for the state police?
That's correct.
Okay.
For the state police as well as other public safety initiatives.
Okay. Within the shadow of where we're standing right here, there are some very challenging neighborhoods, some very dangerous neighborhoods, and some of them are gateways to this area, the first thing that a visitor sees when they come to Albany. Will this money help with that?
I think there is a lot of conversation that has to happen. $200 million is a significant amount, but it's one where we want to be very wise about it. That's why this engagement process is so important. And the work that ESD is doing, the idea is that they're going to select a partner who's going to help us gather community input, make sure that it's people in Albany that are giving input around how to use those funds and dollars. They're going to be issuing out a report by the end of the year. I look forward to seeing what's in there.
I know some of the input you got from business owners is to get people who work for the state back downtown. A huge chunk of the state workforce right now is working from home. Are there plans to bring state workers back to Albany?
There are always conversations around how to make the space more vibrant and what's best for both employees and for the workforce. And so, these are things that are always actively discussed.
But are we going to see it happen?
I think, it's happening organically with agencies bringing their staff more and more in. It's happening in terms of people opting to be back in our spaces. Our agency has been playing a very large role trying to focusing on vibrancy, focusing on making sure that the plaza and all of our facilities are welcoming and best suited for a modern workforce. So those are all priorities. You're going to see conversations taking place through spring, through the summer. If there are people who are watching that have ideas and thoughts, pay attention, right? And so we're looking forward to hearing from all stakeholders, whether they are businesses, their residents, their visitors. It's important for us to look at the capital city, and we all have a role in it. So looking forward to hearing what folks say.
$400 million, it's a lot of money, but will it be transformative? Money and community could have the power to reshape Albany's future. We'll be watching and sharing the stories with you. In the meantime, I'm Greg Floyd for CBS 6 Albany.